Welcome back to the Senior Health Podcast, where we explore the meeting place of ancient wisdom and modern science. I want to start today with a simple image. You've just finished dinner. You feel satisfied, maybe even a little heavy, and like most of us, you sink into your chair. Perhaps you turn on the television or check your phone, letting the body rest. But here's the problem. Inside, your blood sugar is rising. And for many people over 60, those post-meal spikes become a hidden force behind fatigue, cloudy thinking, and long-term health risks. In the United States, diabetes affects nearly 1 in 3 adults over the age of 65, about 29%. And even those who haven't been diagnosed often struggle with blood sugar swings. Yet what if I told you there was a way to help balance that rise? Not with medication, not with strict dieting, but with just 2 minutes of movement. That's what we'll be exploring today, and I couldn't think of anyone better to guide us than my guest. He's been with us before, a physician with more than 60 years of experience, and someone who has seen medicine from both tradition and modernity. Dr. Hinohara, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Dr. John. It is always a joy to be here. You speak of that heavy feeling after a meal. This is something I have seen all my life. In Japan, we sometimes say the body is like a river. If the water stops moving, it grows cloudy. After eating, if we sit too still, the river inside us also slows. Sugar lingers in the blood. Energy stagnates and the mind grows dull. But when we move gently, even for a short time, it is like stirring the water. Suddenly it clears and everything flows again.
That's such a vivid image. In the West, we often explain it in terms of glucose and insulin, but I love how your metaphor captures the lived experience. And I think our listeners will relate because that heaviness after a meal is so common. Today, I'd like us to explore why it happens, what many of us might be doing wrong without realizing it, and of course, the small daily movements you recommend to help keep the river flowing.
Yes, John. And I want to reassure everyone listening. This is not about exercise in the way we usually imagine it. No gym, no weights, no strain. It is about timing, about choosing small, purposeful movements that tell the body, use this energy now. Sometimes the smallest steps are the ones that carry us the farthest.
So let's dive deeper, Doctor. From the Western medical perspective, after a meal, our blood sugar naturally rises as food is digested, and glucose enters the bloodstream. For someone younger and more insulin sensitive, the body clears that sugar fairly quickly. But for many people over 60, insulin isn't as effective as it once was, and the sugar lingers longer. That can mean fatigue, blurred vision, even dizziness after meals. And over time, those repeated spikes add strain to the heart, the kidneys, and even the brain. Why is it, from your perspective, that age makes these swings so much more pronounced?
In Japanese medicine, we see the body not only as organs, but as patterns of energy. With age, the fire of digestion, the spleen ki as we call it, weakens. Food may still be eaten, but it is not transformed as swiftly into usable energy. What you describe as insulin resistance, we might call a slowing of the body's internal furnace. The flame is still there, but it does not burn as brightly. And when the fire is weak, what should become energy instead becomes stagnation.
That's fascinating, because in modern research we've found that muscles themselves play a huge role. When muscles don't contract after meals, glucose stays in the blood instead of moving into the cells. So even if digestion is working, without movement the body struggles to use the energy. It's almost like the furnace you describe isn't being fanned.
Yes, exactly. In the old villages, elders rarely sat still after meals. They would walk in the garden, wash dishes, or tend the courtyard. These small actions kept the river moving. But in today's world, we eat and then we sit. The body is asked to carry a heavy load without help. That is when the cloudiness comes, tired eyes, foggy head, restless heart.
I've seen that too. Patients tell me, "Doctor, I eat healthy, I take my medications, but I still feel drained." And often the missing piece is timing. They may walk in the morning, but after lunch or dinner, they remain still. So the blood sugar rises higher than it needs to.
In our way of speaking, we would say, the right action at the right time is worth 10 actions at the wrong time. A short movement after eating is not only exercise, it is medicine, because it meets the body at the very moment it needs support.
Doctor, one of the things I see often is that people don't realize how small daily habits can quietly sabotage their blood sugar. For example, many of my older patients finish a meal and then sit for an hour or two, reading, watching TV, or even napping. From a medical standpoint, that's one of the worst times to be completely still, because the blood sugar spike is at its peak. Another mistake I notice is in beverages. People think a glass of fruit juice is healthy, but what they don't realize is that juice delivers sugar faster than the body can handle. It's a flood, not a trickle. And then there's the late night snacking. Eating right before bed means sugar sits in the blood while the body is trying to rest. Have you seen similar patterns in your patients?
Yes, John, these are very common. In Japan, we even have a saying, sit after meals and illness will follow, walk after meals and life will follow. Yet many people forget this wisdom. To sit too long is like letting dampness settle into the body. The energy cannot rise, and heaviness comes. As for juice, you are right. The ancients valued fruit as medicine, but always in its whole form, eaten slowly. To drink it pressed and sweetened is like pouring fire into the blood, too fast, too intense. And late eating is another trouble. When the sun has set, the body's yang energy is resting. To place new food inside then is to ask a tired worker to labour through the night. The result is poor digestion and unsettled dreams.
That imagery is powerful. I've had patients who truly thought they were making good choices, choosing low-fat processed snacks, for example, or so-called healthy granola bars. But when we look at the nutrition label, they're often loaded with hidden sugars. Those tiny choices multiplied every day can really add up.
Yes, we call that sweetness that deceives. The tongue is pleased for a moment, but the body pays a longer price. I remind my patients that harmony is not in what is avoided or what is added, but in balance. Too much sitting, too much sweetness, too much irregularity, these are the roots of imbalance that lead to disease.
That makes so much sense. So it seems like a lot of what people do wrong isn't extreme. It's these quiet, everyday choices that over time set the stage for higher blood sugar.
Exactly. And that is good news because it means the correction can also be gentle. We do not need to overturn life, only to guide it back onto its proper path.
So, doctor, now comes the question everyone listening is asking. If sitting too long, drinking sweetened beverages, or eating late at night all make things worse, what can people do instead? What's the small daily practice that can truly help balance blood sugar after meals?
The answer is very simple, John. The medicine is movement, but not in the way most people imagine. We do not need to sweat. We do not need to strain. What we need is rhythm, gently applied at the right time. Even 2 minutes can transform the body's response to food. The first movement I teach is calf raises. You stand tall, place your feet flat on the ground, then slowly lift your heels, rising onto your toes and lower them back down, up and down, like the motion of drawing water from a well. In our tradition, the calf muscles are called the second heart. They pump blood upward, returning energy to the rest of the body. Each rise and fall clears the river, sending sugar from the blood into the muscles to be burned as fuel.
That's remarkable. From the Western side, we know that the soleus muscle in the calf is one of the most powerful glucose absorbers in the body. When it contracts, it pulls sugar out of the bloodstream and into the cells, even without insulin. That's especially helpful for older adults who may already be insulin resistant.
Yes, and it can be done anywhere. Waiting for the kettle to boil, brushing the teeth, standing in the kitchen, 2 minutes after a meal is enough to smooth the sharp rise of blood sugar. The second movement is for those who prefer to remain seated. I call it marching in place on the chair. Sit tall, lift one knee, then the other, as if walking without leaving your seat. This wakes up the hips and thighs, which are large muscles that eagerly drink sugar from the blood. For elders who find standing difficult, this movement is both safe and effective.
That's a beautiful option, especially since so many of our listeners spend long periods sitting. And it's empowering to think that even a chair can become a tool for health.
The third is wall push-offs. Stand an arm's length from a wall. Press your palms against it and gently push your body forward and back. This opens the chest, strengthens the arms, and improves circulation through the upper body. It reminds us that balance is not only in the legs, but in the whole form.
So we have 3 simple practices: calf raises, seated marches, and wall push-offs. None require equipment. None take more than 2 minutes. Yet each one sends a clear message to the body. Use the sugar now. Do not let it linger.
Exactly. Movement is medicine when it is timed with wisdom. In Japanese thought, we say, do not fight the current, guide it. After meals, energy is abundant but unsettled. These small movements guide it into the right channels.
Doctor, what you've described really resonates. And what excites me most is that modern science is now beginning to validate this ancient wisdom. For example, several studies show that light activity right after a meal, something as simple as standing up and engaging the leg muscles, can reduce blood sugar spikes by as much as 15 to 20%. That's remarkable for such a short effort. When we look at it physiologically, the muscles are like sponges. The moment they contract, they draw glucose out of the bloodstream. The calf muscle in particular acts like a pump, circulating blood and lowering sugar without relying as heavily on insulin. For someone in their 60s or 70s, where insulin sensitivity is often reduced, that's a huge advantage.
Yes, John. In Japanese medicine, we do not measure blood sugar in milligrams, but we see the same truth through another lens. We say that movement clears stagnation, and stagnation is the mother of disease. It does not matter whether we speak of glucose or of qi. When the river is moving, there is health. When it is blocked, there is trouble.
That's such a beautiful way to frame it. And it also explains why timing is everything. If you wait an hour or 2 after eating, the spike has already peaked. But by moving within the first 10 to 20 minutes, you catch the wave right as it's rising and redirect it.
Exactly. In the West, you speak of postprandial glucose. In my tradition, we call it digestive fire. When the fire is burning, you can either let it burn the house, or you can use it to warm the home. A few minutes of movement is like placing a pot of tea over the flame. It transforms chaos into nourishment.
I love that metaphor. And it's so encouraging for our listeners because it means you don't need to spend an hour at the gym to make a difference. 2 minutes of intentional movement after each meal can, over time, lower average blood sugar, improve energy levels, and even sharpen mental clarity.
Yes, and remember, the goal is not only numbers on a chart. It is to feel light instead of heavy, awake instead of drowsy, steady instead of restless. These are the real measures of health that a person notices each day. John, may I share a story? It is one that stays close to my heart. Many years ago, a woman named May came to me. She was in her early 70s, gentle in manner, but she carried a deep fatigue. She told me, "Doctor, I eat carefully. I take my medicines. Yet after every meal, I feel as though a heavy curtain has fallen over my eyes." When she walked into my clinic, I could see the weight in her body, not only of years, but of energy unmoved. Her blood sugar, as you would measure it, was high and unstable. She felt powerless. I did not ask her to change her diet immediately, nor did I give her new medicines. I taught her something very small. After each meal, I asked her to rise, place her hands on the back of a chair, and lift her heels slowly again and again. At first, she laughed. "This cannot be real medicine," she said, but she agreed to try. Within 2 weeks, her face looked brighter. She told me she no longer fell asleep at the table after lunch. Her numbers, the ones your Western science measures, were more steady. But more than that, she said, "Doctor, I feel I have control again. I am not a slave to my food."
That's so moving. What I hear is not only physical healing, but emotional freedom. For many of my patients, the hardest part about living with blood sugar swings is the feeling of helplessness, as though no matter what they do, their body betrays them. But giving May something so simple, 2 minutes of movement, returned a sense of agency.
Yes. In our way of thinking, healing is not only numbers or symptoms, it is the return of harmony. When May could move without fear, when she could eat without dread, her spirit lifted. And when the spirit is lifted, the body follows.
It reminds me of something we say in the West: success builds success. Once a patient sees even a small improvement, it gives them hope, and that hope fuels consistency. And consistency, over time, changes everything.
Indeed, John. Sometimes the smallest doorway leads to the greatest hall.
Doctor, I think this is the part where many of our listeners lean in and ask, all right, what exactly should I do? So let's make it simple. If someone is watching at home right now, how can they begin today?
It is simple, John. After your next meal, breakfast, lunch, or dinner, set aside just 2 minutes. If you are standing, do calf raises. If you are sitting, march your knees gently in place. Or, if you prefer, press against a wall with your palms, breathing steadily as you move in and out. Do one of these, whichever feels most natural, and do it while the food is still fresh in your belly.
So the key is timing, within about 10 to 20 minutes after eating, not hours later. And it doesn't matter if you choose calf raises, seated marches, or wall push-offs. What matters is simply moving with intention for those 2 minutes.
Yes. And if you wish to build a stronger habit, tie it to something you already do. For example, when you rinse your bowl after eating, lift your heels as the water runs. When you sit to watch the evening news, march your knees for the first 2 minutes. When you stand at the sink brushing your teeth before bed, lean into the wall a few times. The body loves rhythm, and habits grow easily when they are woven into life's ordinary fabric.
That's so helpful. And I'd add for our listeners, don't wait for motivation. Motivation comes and goes. Think of this as brushing your teeth. You don't debate it, you just do it. 2 minutes after meals every day. Over time, those 2 minutes can add up to better blood sugar, more steady energy, and even sharper mental clarity.
Yes, John. And let me offer one more small gift to our listeners. In Japanese culture, we sometimes drink a warm cup of barley tea after meals. It is gentle, it aids digestion, and it reminds the body that nourishment should flow, not stagnate. If you enjoy such rituals, they can become companions to your movements. The body heals not only through action, but through atmosphere, warmth, calmness, and care.
Dr. Hinohara, thank you once again for sharing your wisdom. Every time we speak, I'm reminded that health isn't only about numbers or charts. It's about rhythm, balance, and daily choices that anyone can begin.
And I thank you, John, for opening this space. In our culture, we say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Today, that step may be as small as lifting your heels or raising your knees, but if done with purpose, it carries you far.
That's beautiful. To our listeners, if you try these 2-minute movements after meals, let us know how you feel in 7 days. Do you notice less fatigue, more clarity, a steadier mood? Your feedback helps us guide future conversations, and it may inspire others as well.
Yes, healing grows stronger when it is shared. Move with purpose after you eat, and let your body remind you that even in age there is renewal.
Well said. And with that, we close today's episode of the Senior Health Podcast. Remember, small, consistent steps shape long-lasting health. Thank you, Dr. Hinohara, and thank you to everyone listening.
May your meals be light, your movements gentle, and your days full of flow.